Hey, hello there, everyone, and welcome to a very special interview. My name is Patrick, and thank you for joining in on Pat's Gaming Adventures today. My adventure today is a very special interview with the founder of WayForward, Voldi.
Well, thank you. It's great to be on your show.
And it's such an honor. Alright, I've done this interview one time before. If you guys have not seen that, I'll leave a link to it in the description down below. And alright, the very first question for the interview: why did you get into gaming development?
It actually, well, we'd have to go way back to 1982. I was 12, and my best friend got a Commodore 64, and that was what really hooked me. Before that, my neighbor had an Atari 2600, so I would play those games. But it wasn't until the Commodore 64 that I really got into it, especially development, because back then when you had a computer, the operating system was BASIC. It was a programming language. So if you owned a computer, you knew how to program. So that was when I first started getting into it. And uh, I would spend all of my waking hours there. There was a magazine called Compute Magazine where they would send source code for games in each issue, and my friend and I would like type it in and run the game. And so that's pretty much when I became obsessed with it. But I didn't really do anything about it other than just dabbling on the side, just in my spare time for fun, until my 20th birthday. I remember thinking, I'm 20 years old now. What am I doing with my life? Uh, uh, I said I really want to develop video games, but I don't know if there's any money in it, because this was back in 1990, so it was kind of still the early days of gaming. And so I said, well, I might as well have a go at it. If it doesn't work out, I can always just go out and get a real job. And now it's been 33 years, and I haven't had to get a real job. So so far, so good.
Like, was it really difficult when you first started, like, the game development? Was it hard to, like, understand stuff like coding and such and programming?
Well, for me, I think it's hard to remember, because when you start doing something so young, it just kind of seems natural. Um, so for me, it wasn't, but I think that's just because I spent a lot of time with it. Maybe if I was just starting programming now, it would be different, but I've been doing it my whole life, so it feels pretty natural.
Yeah, I've always wanted to try gaming development myself, but thing is, coding, it's one of those things I just cannot seem to understand, even explain to me, like, all the random numbers, random letters. I could just never really understood what it ever really meant, even after it's being explained to me.
And I think, like most things in life, it's just the more time you spend with it, the more sense it makes. I mean, I kind of feel like that about art. I'm a terrible artist. Uh, so it's really just you know spending time with it. The nice thing is now, there, with things like ChatGPT, it can generate code for you. So and plus, there are a lot of, you don't have to learn assembly language or C++. You can uh have you ever played Roblox?
I have, yes, sir.
Okay, so Roblox, they have their Lua scripting language, and it's built in, and there's a ton of free code in the asset store. So basically, you can just experiment with things really easily without coding, and then just kind of read through it and see if you understand it. And even if you don't, you can paste it into ChatGPT and say, "Hey, how can I make this do blah?" And it'll rewrite the code for you. So nowadays, you can get away with not totally understanding it. You have to know enough to, prompt ChatGPT to give you what you want, but it'll do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. And more importantly, it'll explain how things work. Like, if you see a snippet of code and you're like, "What is this doing?" You can just paste it in and say, "Hey, explain this code to me." So
Okay. I might try that at some point. Alright. What game are y'all currently working on, and what other games do y'all have planned for the future?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of what's been announced yet. We typically work on 5 to 6 games at a time. You know,
Wow.
some bigger, some smaller. They're not all like, big games. But uh most recently our Contra Operation Galuga game was announced. So that'll be coming out. We're just finishing that up. And what else was announced? The Yeah, I'm trying to think of what was announced that I can talk about. Well, let's stick with that one for now, because that's the big one that's coming up soon.
Yeah, I can understand. As a game developer, you want to make sure you don't let out way too much information at once.
Speaking of Contra, that one, I don't know if you ever tried Contra 4. That was the previous Contra game we worked on. That one was tough as nails as well. That one, like to be honest, I don't think I would have been able to finish it myself unless I played with our creative director Matt Bozon, like 2-player, because he helped me through some sticky parts. But that's another example of a really hard game. But that's kind of goes back to the DNA of Contra. It's always been, you know, prided itself on being tough as nails.
Yeah, I've tried the very first Contra game. It was. I've only played through the first level, but it was like difficult for what it is. And also, me, my crazy self, never playing the game, wanted to try to jump into a blindfolded speed run of the first level.
Yep.
Okay. Uh, okay. What would you say has been the easiest and also the hardest part of gaming development for you?
The easiest part is just that it doesn't feel like a real job because it's doing something fun and different. It definitely never gets boring or monotonous because it's something new every time. And it's something I love to do. So I feel like that's like, if I had to give advice for anyone, just try to find a job that you love doing, and then it doesn't feel like work. So that's the easiest thing about it. The hardest thing, in some ways, is the flip side of that, is that it's constantly changing. So every time you think you've got it figured out, it changes, like new technology or new styles of gameplay or new, So on the one hand, there's never a dull moment. It's always new and exciting. And on the other hand, it's always changing. So it's hard to keep up sometimes.
Yeah. Coding seemed like, even though it may be difficult, it also seems like pretty fun to experiment with, seeing what coding does, what to your game, what it causes your characters to do and such, like what abilities it will just randomly make your character do. But
Yep.
it just seems like a very cool thing, coding, seeing that you can just make it do whatever you want in your game.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It feels like you're a sorcerer, or you're creating magic. Like, so yeah, no, I love coding. I think my ultimate vacation would be to just like be able to spend like 2 weeks just programming whatever I wanted just for fun, But yeah, any sort of programming is really fun for me. I know it's not for everyone, but that's the nice thing about game development, is there are so many other roles. There's design and art and music and sound effects and visual effects. So there's something for everyone.
Yeah, and this just made me think of another question, similar to the second one. Is there any specific games that you personally would love to make yourself, just like as a passion project, like something that you want to do, not the team, but you?
Well, I've been a VR enthusiast since the early days. Like from Google Cardboard, I backed the original Oculus Kickstarter. I've been a VR enthusiast, and we have worked on a few VR games, but it's kind of a tough business because it hasn't really caught on enough. So that's more of a passion thing for me, just messing around with it on the side, because we can't. I basically, there's not enough money in it yet to really do it as a business for WayForward. That said, we did work on Tank Up, and we did part of World War Tunes and Raw Data, but it hasn't really become a main part of our business. And one of my favorite games of all time is Half-Life Alyx. And not only is that one of my favorite games, but it's also one of the scariest things I've ever experienced. It's like, I mean, horror films can be scary, but, or I don't know, roller coasters or mazes, you know, but Half-Life Alyx, especially, I think it was chapter 7 with Jeff, was just, Jeff was the creature in it, was like one of the scariest things I ever did. So that's a VR game, and I know a lot of people haven't played it because, you know, you need a high-end enough system to do it. But I hope more games like that come out, and even more so, I hope we get to work on a game like that at some point in the future.
Oh my god, you know, it'd be... I can actually imagine a VR game of Shantae. Like, I can imagine you being Shantae and just... I mean, I can actually picture it. You being Shantae standing in front of her friends. Like, I can't really exactly imagine the level design with it right now, but I just see that being an interesting game.
Yeah, for sure. We did a game called Till Morning's Light with Amazon, which was like a survival horror game, 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah, it's called Till Morning's Light. And it was originally a Fire Phone exclusive, or it was supposed to be, but then the Fire Phone never really did well, so it also came out on iPhone. And it was really highly rated. It was almost a perfect 5. It was so close. It was like 1 pixel away from being a perfect 5 stars on it. They eventually pulled it from the App Store because it required updates, and they just didn't want to get involved with that, the OS updates. But we actually did a VR prototype of that. We converted it to VR, and it was really good. But then, you know, various things happened. You know, Amazon tends to shuffle things around, and so it didn't. And they own the rights to it, so they. Yeah. It wasn't that they weren't interested; they just didn't. The people who had been involved with it had moved on, and they weren't exactly sure who owned the rights or who would be responsible. So. Sadly, that never happened, but we do have a really nice demo for it.
I might check that out. Now, I know a lot of gaming developers always have to be prepared when it comes to negativity towards their video games. Like, how do you deal with negativity like towards your games?
I feel like I've become, I won't say immune because, you know, it still hurts, but I do tend to ignore it a lot. And I think I'm getting better at when I see it, I just kind of dismiss it as, oh, they're just a troll, or, you know, or something, like they're just trolling me. So, but yeah, I mean, I would argue that's probably true in almost everything. Like even you with your video interviews and podcasts or whatever, I'm sure there are people there's trolls who go in the comments and just post something, you know, mean. Like, how do you deal with it?
Usually, I usually just delete the comment depending on how negative it is. If it's not too terribly negative, I just make some joke comment, joke reply to them, or just say thanks for watching.
Yeah. I feel bad for Chris Hoffman. You know, Chris who introduced us.
Yeah.
He's our community manager among other roles, and so he has to deal with that sort of thing more than me. I tend to just tune it out whenever possible, but he has to address it, and yeah, I'm sure that's not a very enjoyable part of his job.
Especially when these people just say the most ridiculous stuff, especially when it doesn't have anything to do with the games. I've seen people do reviews like that on a lot of indie games.
Yeah, it is unfair, especially like if someone doesn't like, let's say, Metroidvania platformers, then why would they review it? You know, if like, and complain that it's not as good as Overwatch or something. Like, it's a totally different game.
Exactly. Like, what is your biggest goal in game development currently?
Well, one thing that was a goal that I think we're actually progressing towards is doing more original stuff. I mean, we always love working with the big brands, so that's going to definitely continue to be part of it. We get, excited to work on big brands, whether they're gaming brands like Contra or or River City, like we did with River City Girls, or even movie brands. I mean, we've worked on Batman and Marvel superheroes and Adventure Time. You can see like Ninja Turtles and Adventure Time in the background. But I'm hoping in the future we do get to do some more. I mean, to be fair, we've been doing quite a bit lately of original stuff. So I hope we get to do more of that. And okay, this is something that's probably more distant future, but do you know how like Super Mario Brothers became Mario 64, right? Went into 3D.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Well, most of our games are 2D, like, or they're side scroll. Even if the art is 3D, the gameplay is 2D, like Shantae, I would love it at some point to do something like the Shantae 64, basically the 3D version of it, where you run around in a 3D environment, kind of, or like Mario Odyssey, or 3D action platformers.
Yeah, I was actually about to. That was one of the questions I was like thinking of. Like, if you had any ideas for Shantae games besides 2D side scrollers.
Well, yeah, we would love to do a Shantae 64 or 3D. I can call it 64 because that's like Nintendo 64, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Action platformer of Shantae.
Like, how can you imagine a 3D Shantae game being? Like, would you make it something totally original, or probably like maybe a 3D version of an already existing Shantae game?
Well, that would be a question for Matt Bozon, which incidentally, maybe he'll be on your show one of these days. He's our creative director, and Shantae is his baby, so all of the design, that's him. Like, everything design-wise, he created. So knowing him, I think he would like to tell a new story. I don't think he would like retell the original Shantae in 3D. I think he'd probably come up with something new, and I think it would be gameplay wise, maybe similar to like Mario Odyssey. You can see, I don't know if you can tell, this is my subtle Mario Hawaiian shirt. You can see like all of the Mario stuff hidden.
I saw the fire flowers and all.
Yeah. So knowing him, it would be a new story, but just set in a 3D environment, like Mario Odyssey.
Okay. And you said it was Matt Bovine, his name was?
Matt Bozon, B-O-Z-O-N, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
He was the one who came up with the entire design for Shantae, wasn't he?
Yep. Yeah, he and his wife actually, before I even met them, I met them back in 1993. We were working on Mickey's Ultimate Challenge for the Super Nintendo, and then later ported to the Sega Genesis, Game Boy Black and White, and the Game Gear. But Matt and Aaron were going to CalArts at the time, and they had created Shantae already. So Shantae is really Matt's baby, and then we've developed a lot of games over the years, but really it's his baby.
Okay. Did you have involvement with River City Girls? Did you do any of the designs or the gameplay?
I didn't. At this point, as much as I love programming, I don't get to do it as much. I'm more involved in, company roles, which can be like the boring stuff like payroll, accounting, HR stuff, signing legal agreements. So that's the kind of stuff that I have to do. And then, sometimes I get more in the weeds from a project management point of view. But I didn't do any programming in the River City Girls games. And the first one was designed by Adam with Bannon assistant directing. And then the second one was Bannon basically directing. Although Adam still wrote the script for it.
Okay. Oh my god, I just remembered something recently. What gave y'all the idea to make a side-scrolling Ruby game?
So Rooster Teeth actually reached out to us, and they're Jeff Yetter, who's in charge of licensing and the biz dev. He was a fan of our Shantae game, so he basically said, "Hey, can you do something like this, with our characters?" So that's basically how that came about. So that was a co-development deal where they put in some of the funding, we put in some of the funding, our System Works put in some of the funding, and then we partnered on that.
I honestly think it was an interesting aspect. I would definitely love to see another Ruby game that's like a 3D action type game, kind of like Grim Eclipse. Although I felt Grim Eclipse had a bit of a blandish fighting system, I would say.
Well, what would you think? About like a brawler, but maybe 3D, but something like River City Girls, where it's kind of a Z space brawler, but with the Ruby characters.
Oh my gosh, I would play that right away.
Okay, I should disclaim we don't have anything in the works, but we've talked about that a lot because we think it would be really cool. It hasn't gotten off the ground, but that's something that I personally think would be awesome. So hearing that you would think it would be good too. Are you a Ruby fan?
I do love Ruby. Although I've only ever watched the complete first full volume. Just because I've always been obsessed with wanting to watch other stuff. Like, back there on that shelf is like a lot of anime DVDs.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy anime fan.
I can't read the titles, but it looks like you've got quite the collection there. And it looks like you have Naruto, is that Naruto?
Yeah, you see Naruto.
The action figures in the top?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I've been wanting to watch more anime, and other gaming type stuff, and that's why I haven't watched a lot of Ruby. Oh, and how did y'all come up with the idea for River City Girls?
I believe that that's a good question that I should know the answer to. I believe what happened was Bannon Rudis, who had previously worked on River City Ransom Underground before he even worked for us. I don't know if he came to us or Adam. I should get back to you with that, but it was either Adam or Bannon who had talked with our System Works about it, and then our typical. You'll notice there's a lot of female character lead female characters in our games. So when Adam was talking with our System Works about it, and they asked if we were interested in doing some sort of partnering on, because that was a co-development where some of the funding was us, some was from them, and and then Adam, I believe it was Adam who said, "Hey, well, instead of doing a straight River City Girls game where it's Ricky and Kunio, why don't we do our typical WayForward spin and make their girlfriends be the lead characters?" Because their girlfriends actually hadn't existed in Western audiences yet. They were only on the Super Nintendo version or the Super Famicom version in Japan. So I think it was Adam who came up with the idea to make Misako and Kyoko the lead, the main playable characters in it.
Was River City Girls actually quite successful for y'all? Because I've noticed you guys have quite a few River City Girl games.
Yeah, we have 3 of them now, if you count River City Girls 0, which was basically an enhanced port of the Super Famicom game, because it was never released over here. So we got to bring that here and then also add, intro sequences and, you know, basically spice it up. But yeah, that's doing very well for us. It's probably second only to Shantae for us. And to be fair, it does as well or better than some of the Shantae games. Not all of them, but it's comparable.
Can you do you guys think you'll ever make a Shantae game that's got the same gameplay style as the River City Girls? I've seen a lot of the enemies in Shantae, and I think they could be given like unique abilities, and I can see y'all giving Shantae a lot of different abilities with her hair and her magic to go against like enemies in that kind of play style.
That's a really interesting idea. I don't know that we've actually ever discussed that, but I will certainly bring it up to Matt Bozon because, it does seem like a natural fit, especially now that we've done so many brawlers as well as Metroidvania. I mean, Shantae is historically Metroidvania, but, who's to say we couldn't do a brawler version of Shantae? So, yeah, definitely an interesting idea.
Okay. Now, this next question I'm going to ask, really because of, Nintendo's past with this kind of thing. I notice a lot of game developers, for some reason, especially Nintendo, seems to hate it when fans make fan-made games of their projects. Which I don't understand why. How do y'all feel when y'all see a fan making a fan-made game of y'all's, video game?
Oh, I love it. I mean, that's the most flattering compliment, that our brand is popular enough to have a fan-made version of it. So I mean, I guess when you're a big company like Nintendo, maybe it happens all the time and so they don't like it. I don't know. But for us, since our brands aren't nearly as popular, when someone does that, that just means that we're doing something right and people, want to make an homage or a tribute to it because they enjoyed it so much. So to me, it's a huge compliment when there's a fan game.
I think I don't know if it was you that responded to this question. A while back on Twitter. I remember messaging the WayForward account. Do y'all have any plans on making a collection of the Shantae games?
We don't have specific plans now. We've talked about it from time to time, but just it never has happened, and we don't have specific plans. But now that you're mentioning it, I'll bring it up again during our next publishing meeting to see if we should kind of put it in the roadmap. But as of now, we don't have any plans for that. But it is a good idea.
Okay, and what about the very first Shantae game? Are y'all ever going to port that one to PC?
I don't think we would port it. I mean, it does, run on other platforms, just not PC. But, or are you talking about like a remaster, kind of like what we did with DuckTales Remastered or something, where we basically redo the first one with all HD art and animation?
Basically just any way getting it on the platform in general.
We don't have plans for that. That port was done using the Carbon engine from Limited Run, and they don't tend to release on PC. They mostly just release on PlayStation, Xbox and Switch. So, but you know what? We could talk to them if they do plan on making a PC version of the Carbon engine. Then for sure we'd want to have it because but they would have to do the heavy lifting for it. That's not really something in our power. But if they do come out with a PC port of the Carbon engine, I think we would definitely want to have Shantae there.
How would you feel about Shantae being in Smash Brothers?
I mean, that would be awesome. I mean, I think that would be an honor for anyone. And we do have the stickers in there and the amiibo, but as a playable character, that would be great. Yeah, we would love it.
Yeah, I've seen all over Twitter, like, whenever another new character gets announced, everyone is always asking, like, if Shantae is going to be put into the game.
Yeah, I mean that would be up to Nintendo if they do. I mean, yeah, we would love it, but that would be up to them. I wish we had some kind of way to influence that, but it's entirely up to them.
Okay, another Shantae question. Would y'all ever make a cartoon of Shantae? Kind of like with the same animation y'all did that opening theme in?
Yeah, I know that's something that's on Matt's bucket list. In fact, not just bucket list, he's been trying that, pushing for a show for years, for decades even, because I remember it seemed like we almost maybe had an opportunity for a TV show back, oh gosh, over 10 years ago. And so yeah, I really hope that happens. And both Matt and Aaron, Aaron Bozon is Matt's wife, are pushing really hard for that. So hopefully one of these days, fingers crossed.
How about a show for River City Girls?
It's funny. We actually did pitch that a little bit. Didn't get too much traction, but we're not giving up, because that would be great too. I think River City Girls would make an awesome show as well.
Yeah, I can see River City Girls being very similar to a lot of those school-themed animes. Oh my god, there's a few anime, like, martial art, like, school-type anime, like Tenji Ho Tenji. I don't know if you've heard of that one.
I haven't, but yeah, no, I've seen a lot. My son is 14, and so he's really into anime. So we've been watching a lot of Jujutsu Kaisen and Mob Psycho, and those types of. I mean, because Mob Psycho is high school, beat 'em up. Jujutsu Kaisen, My Hero Academia. There are so many animes set in high school with fighting. So yeah, I think it would make a really good show.
Yeah, that kind of concept will fit the best, in my opinion, for River City Girls.
Yep, and Adam Tierney, who did all the writing, he's actually written TV shows. He wrote a couple episodes of Teen Titans Go, if you've ever seen that one.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and he was the writer for River City Girls. So it's got that very kind of snarky, tongue-in-cheek, sometimes fourth wall breaking style. So I think it would be a great show. Yeah.
With Shantae, I can't really imagine it be like anything else being probably similar to, maybe somewhat similar to Aladdin, but more like, I guess, beach theme, not beach theme, pier themed, pirate themed, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, like One Piece.
Oh yeah, I guess you could say kind of like One Piece.
Yeah, no, I think Shantae would definitely stand out and have a lot of unique elements for a TV show. So yeah, hopefully one of these days it'll become one.
Didn't you say you had some development with Adventure Time or something?
Yeah, we did develop 4 Adventure Time games, including the first one ever, which was Hey Ice King, Why'd You Steal Our Garbage? And that one was especially fun because Pendleton Ward, who's the creator of the show, he wanted to learn how to do pixel animation. He's an incredible animator, but he hadn't done pixel animation. So he actually worked out of our office for a couple months, which made approvals much faster, but he also did a lot of the pixel animation, alongside of our animators. So yeah, we worked a number, including Adventure Time Puzzle Quest, which was a mobile game. 3 of them were our more traditional, like, PC console games, and then Adventure Time Puzzle Quest was a mobile game.
You developed a game called The Secret of the Nameless Kingdom, right?
Mm-hmm, yep.
Like, how would you describe your experience developing that game?
That one, I believe that one was the one that was based on or an homage, we'll call it, to Zelda: Link to the Past. The first one was an homage to Zelda 2, and it's funny when we first started working on it, it ended up coming out really kind of more similar to Zelda 2 than we even anticipated. And one of the reviewers called us out on it, but instead of giving us a bad review, he gave us like a 10 out of 10 saying, wow, this game is, they're taking the classic gameplay of Zelda 2 and exposing it to an audience who's never had the opportunity to play Zelda 2. And then I think Nameless King, that was the Hey Ice King, Why'd You Steal Our Garbage? And then I believe it was Nameless Kingdom, that was the basically an homage to Zelda: Link to the Past.
What kind of game is that one? Why'd You Steal Our Garbage?
It's basically like Zelda 2. It's like Zelda 2 style gameplay with Adventure Time wrapper on it. It's actually pretty good. I kind of think we should bring that out for Switch or something. Like we should. Yeah, that's my personal favorite of them, and maybe it's because it was one of the first, or not one. It was the first one, and we also got to work closely with Pendleton Ward on it, so I'm partial to that one. It was also a time frame. I think we only had like 6 months to make that from start to finish, which for us is very short.
Do you guys have any plans on making any other games, like making any more games based on other cartoons other than Adventure Time?
Oh, we have so many pitches. Like if you mention a cartoon, we probably have a pitch for it. But it doesn't always happen. It's weird. Like you would think, it's not for lack of trying. Like there are a lot that we've done pitches for, but yeah, so I can probably safely say that we will at some point, because we do so many pitches that one of these days one of them's going to get turned into a game. So I think I can safely say yes, we will do it. I just don't know what it is yet, because it's not greenlit yet.
Like, are there any companies that you guys want to like collab with in terms of gaming, in terms of video games?
Probably all of them. Again, we've done a lot of pitches for games, and none of them have happened, but we've pitched, Sony, Riot, Activision, all kinds of, partners or potential partners on games. We actually do pitches all the time. If we look at the ones that actually turn into real games, it's probably like 1% or something. Okay. So, or are you talking about big publishers like Riot or Activision or Blizzard, or are you talking about like indie devs?
Well, AAA companies, and I was about to ask if there's any indie developers you want to collab with.
At one point, we kind of designed this indie fighter game, and we actually got it approved, like the concept approved by Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. We don't have to get approval for PC, obviously. But we just never did it. But I still love the idea and really want to do it, where we collaborate with other indie devs to make something, maybe not exactly the same gameplay as Smash Brothers, but imagine a brawler or a fighter of some sort where we have characters from all different various indie games coming together.
My God, I would love to see that. I can imagine so many indie video game characters being in a like brawler type game. They definitely already did that with a lot of PlayStation games. They recently did it with Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl.
Yep.
So I can see it working out with indie developers.
Yeah, and we talked to a number of indie devs about it, and everyone was interested. I think we've just all been too busy and just haven't done it, but maybe one of these days.
Like, is there like any specific indie devs like you would love to collaborate with yourself? Like maybe even possibly the developer of Stardew Valley, or even the developer of Undertale?
Oh, Undertale, I wonder if he'd be interested. That would be so cool. I know my son was just like the hugest fan. A few years ago, he went through a phase where he was just obsessed with Undertale, and so that has a special fondness. But we'd have to go through and figure out which ones, because not all characters have the best lend themselves to the best fighting mechanics. Although I'm sure we could make something work with Undertale. Don't know what it would be, but yeah, no, that's a good example.
Could you imagine a life simulator type game, or kind of like Stardew Valley, like a Shantae version of that, or like maybe something like a school life simulator with River City Girls?
A simulator, like kind of like Sim City kind of thing.
Kind of like, I guess, farming sims.
Mm-hmm. Sure, that would be an interesting take. Also, I don't know that we've discussed that. I'm sure Matt's probably thought about it, because knowing Matt, he loves farming sims like Harvest Moon. If that's the kind of thing you're thinking about, so I'm sure he's thought about it. You know what? Next time I see him, I'll have to ask him about that. Like, have you considered a Shantae farming sim or a Shantae sim?
I am putting so many ideas in your head this interview, aren't I?
Yeah.
That is one good thing I love to do with indie developers, like giving them ideas. It's just, those ideas, never know, can come into fruition.
Yeah. So have you considered developing your own games?
Nah, it's just, I'm one of those people that doesn't necessarily have the right amount of patience for something like that. There are some things I would love to do. Like, I would love to do a remake of one of my favorite Backyardigans Flash games.
Oh yeah, I love the Backyardigans. Those were funny. My daughter was at the age where she was watching that show, and that's a surprisingly fun show. I know it's a kid's show, but there are some kid shows that are just painful to watch as a parent, and then there are others that like I just always liked, and that was one of them.
Yeah, I am still crazily obsessed with a lot of childhood shows. I still love, the Backyardigans, Clifford the Big Red Dog, Reading Rainbow, Dragon Tales, like so many of them.
We actually worked on a Clifford game on PC like way back, like 20 years, or was it 20 years ago? This was back. It was after floppy. It was CD-ROM. It was a CD-ROM game, but it was like over 20 years ago. I'll have to find it. We might not have gotten credit. Because back then we were more work for hire, so we might have just been like white label. I thought we had a name in the credits.
Phonics?
I'll have to find it later for you.
Did you say Phonics?
Yeah, we did work on a phonics game, like a reading and phonics game back in the day.
To be honest, I always knew you guys as the developers of Shantae and River City Girls, but I did not know you guys branched out to so many different types of games.
Oh, we did. We actually, before we even did, the Shantae games, we did a lot of educational games. So we did, Muppet Reading and Phonics, Casper, Lost in Time, Bible's American Tale, Clifford, Bear in the Big Blue House, Berenstain Bears, so many educational games. And then we did a lot of stuff for Leapfrog too, including some Ninja Turtles and Spider-Man and stuff like that. We did like Marvel Superheroes Amazing Math. We did a couple of them. Marvel Superheroes Teach Math. We did a lot of educational software. And then we've dabbled in other things. We worked on a robotics project one time with Idea Lab. And then there was a time back in the mid-90s where we were actually the world's foremost developer of EEG neurofeedback games. So those are games that you play entirely with your brain, like you have the EEG like sensors all over.
Yeah.
And they were used in clinics. So we helped people get over having epilepsy and ADHD and various other neurological disorders with our games. So yeah, I'll have to send you a list. But we worked on over. Well, we lost track after like 200 games. I think we're probably over 300 games now, if you go way back in time. Because remember, 33 years. We've been around for 33 years. So if you go back to the early days, we did games on floppy disks, before CD-ROMs even existed.
I did not know y'all were that far back. Oh, wow. That's something new. Man, that is incredible. It must have been an incredible journey. But okay, I guess this is going to be where we end the interview for this this video. Alright, I really appreciate to everyone who watched this interview. If you guys would love for me to do more interviews like this, let me know in the comment section down below. I'll try to branch out to many different types of developers. And if Voldi of WayForward is willing, I might be able to even interview much more well-known developers just like him. But like I said, I'll try. But anyways, I appreciate you all watching, and hope to see y'all next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.